Gotta tell the camera what you're doing. You're back on what?
Martin Luther King Jr.
All right. You're picking up part 2?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
There's probably going to be a lot of birds.
Probably. Okay, start the first sentence you see. The first sentence. Right there on page 19.
That's not the start of the sentence.
No, start at the first sentence.
Oh. One of the most unforgettable examples Martin was given as a child was his father's active opposition.
Active opposition? What's that? Read again.
Opposition.
His active opposition.
To racism.
To racism.
Racism and unfair treatment of black people.
Mm-hmm.
Martin's father refused to ride the buses or obey the laws that was
Segregated.
or separated black people from white people. There were so many such laws at the time. Martin often missed his father's refusal to follow these unfair laws the city imposed. One day, Martin and his father were shopping at a shoe store when the sales clerk told them he could not wait them because they were sitting on an area reserved for whites only. I'd be happy to wait on you if you'll move those seats in the rear, the sales clerk said politely. There's nothing wrong with these seats, Martin's father responded. We're quite comfortable here. Sorry, said the clerk. They have to move. Well, either buy shoes sitting here, Martin's father said firmly, or we won't buy shoes at all. He grabbed Martin's hand and walked out the store. Martin's chair was fuming with anger.
Can you speak a little louder? Speak a little louder.
I don't care how long they had this system. I will never accept it, Martin, sir said, squeezing his son's hand as they hurried down the street. During another incident, the time with the police officer, Martin's father once again stood up to the white man. Martin, sir, had accidentally...
Martin Sr. SR is senior. And JR is junior. Okay?
Had accidentally driven past the stop sign when the policeman in the patrol car pulled alongside them. All right, boy, pull over. Let me see your license, the officer demanded. I'm no boy, this is a boy, Martin, sir, said.
Senior.
I can't say sir.
No. It's senior. It's sir stands, it's an abbreviation.
Said, pointing.
Sir is SIR. Okay, if it said Sir Martin Luther, then it'd be sir. But Martin Luther SR is Martin Luther Sr.
I'm a man until you address me as one. I will not listen to you. The policeman was shocked. He wrote up a ticket nervously and left the scene as quickly as possible. For this example was not wasted on young Martin for coloreds only, nor he would attend the Jim Crow movie houses where, because the so-called Jim Crow standards, blacks had to enter and leave through a rear door.
Blacks had to enter and leave through rear door?
Yeah.
Okay.
This was quite a sacrifice for a 10-year-old who had heard all the excitement about the recent film Gone with the Wind. Like his father, he simply could not accept the separate waiting rooms, eating places, and restrooms. Black people, not only because separate always was unequal. By the time he was 12 years old, though Martin had set aside some of these feelings for a while. At the 7th grader, Martin enrolled in the Atlanta University Labor School. In order to get there each morning, he had ride a segregated city bus.
Segregated city bus. Do you remember what segregated means?
No.
Okay, segregated means they separated the people. Okay, remember black people and white people were separate, so they were segregated. Okay, they put them. White people hung out with white people. Black people hung out with black people, and black people usually sit in the back, or on the bottom or something, or
Why
somewhere.
do you sit in the back?
Because they didn't want to give them fair treatment. That's what Martin Luther King's about, trying to get fair treatment. So they thought it was worse to sit in the back. It's better to sit in the front. So they didn't let the black people sit in the front. They let the white people sit in the front because they thought the white people were better. So now Martin Luther King said, no, we all got to be fair. We all got to be equal, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So segregated means separate. So whenever you hear segregated, remember that. Remember they're separating people or separating something. Okay, go ahead.
In order to get there each morning, he had to ride a segregated city bus. There was no other choice, and Martin wanted to attend the school. There were exciting classes there, and Martin first began to study the violin and later the piano. His favorite subjects were history and English, and he excelled. All those big words he had memorized, some from his father's sermons, but mostly from a radio show called 7 Minutes at the Mic, were put to good use. He also enjoyed discussions about religion, but after his first year at lab school, his faith was one more tested. One Sunday morning in May, Martin had heard they were going to a parade downtown. That pushed his homework aside and sneaked out of the house and hurried off to see the military uniforms and hear marching music. He loved to watch the long rows of prancing musicians with their horns gleaming in the sun. Some high-stepping girls were twirling in batoons had just passed by when one of Martin's friends ran up to him, all out of breath. "And now your grandmother is sick," his friend yelled over the sound of bass drums. "They think she had a heart attack." Martin rushed home to learn that Mama had died. She had died while waiting to speak at Women's Day event at Mount Olive Baptist Church. Martin was overwhelmed with sadness and anger. Angry at himself for sneaking off without permission. To his safety and own curiosity. For many weeks, he blamed himself for Mama's death. When men said she would still be alive and he had not run off to enjoy the parade. This sadness lingered and caused Martin to question himself and believe in God. He would be a college student before he started to believe he'd be believing again, but never. After rediscovering his faith, he would be doubting Martin again. And here's the next illustration.
Okay.
Chapter 2. For the next 2 years, Martin, now called Tweety because of his foreignness in tweed suits, worked and studied very hard. He finished high school when he was just 15. Now he was ready to attend Morehouse, the college his father and grandfather had attended. Although now officially a college student, Martin could not decide what a major course of study would be. Martin began to Morehouse with the idea of being a doctor, but the study of biology didn't appeal to him, nor was it interested in the law. Before long, though, his faith and old dreams came back to him. Now he knew what life's hard work was to be. Martin's decision was to become a administrator pleased his father. Martin Sir announced that the news to his congregation and told him that his son would be a deliverer to his trial sermon. Read about this first sermon at Albenzer. Martin studied the works of several great speakers, including Henry Emerson, Fosdick's Life, What You Make It. There are also long hours of Henry Thoreau's essay on civil disobedience.
Civil disobedience. Henry David Thoreau. Essays on civil disobedience.
This great book was Martin's introduction to the philosophy of the leader he wanted to become. When the time came for Martin to preach, there were already a huge crowd gathering to an anticipation. Give the senior sermon. Of the sermon had to be moved from the basement of the church sanctuary. At first, Martin was nervous, but after a sentence or two, he became more confident. Now, the now famous deep, smoothing, more confident, and now famous deep, smoothing tone of his later sermons was not fully developed. At this time, even so, his voice was stronger than most of his boys at its age.
You gotta read a little loud, please.
And Martin used just enough big words to impress the large
congregation.
To impress a large congregation and his father, who made the church's assistant pastor. Martin was such a good student in college. He was chosen to give the senior sermon, join up at the same conference he had summoned for his first preacher in Albenzer. Martin moved this audience too. He was marvelous sermon. For years after a war, many people were there to recall Martin's sermon, but many told him that he even knew then that day he would be a great man. In the summer of 1948, Martin and Christine graduated in separate ceremonies. Martin then decided to enroll at the College Theological Seminary in Chester, Pennsylvania, and mentally make school notes for tight academic standards. It took only a few classes for Martin to decide to study theology seriously. The courses at Crozer were not easy, but Martin did very well. He studied many of these great thinkers and fellow officers, such as Rizu, Flavius, and the Christian theologist Reinhold.
You know what theology means?
No.
It means like studying religions and God. So when he's studying theology, he's studying religions and God. Okay?
Yeah. Of the 11 black students who entered that summer, Martin earned the highest grades. He was well on his way to being the victoriation of his class. Among the
God
most
Victorian.
influential of his teachers was Walt Rackeshambush. Martin was deeply impressed by Rackeshambush's emphasis on social gospel, which meant using one faith and belief in righteousness to correct social wrongs. Speaker using the style and technique of Professor Robert Kaihan, who was introduced to him the works of Shakespeare. T. Poyness, Point a Light, and Stet
University.
With the best wishes of his friends and recommendations
From the facility. Recommendations from the facility.
At Crozer, Martin packed his new car for a long drive from Atlanta to Boston. There was a brief stop in Brooklyn where he preached a guest ceremony at Reverend Gardner Taylor Conservative Baptist Church. One of the largest congregations.
What? One of the largest what? Congregations
in the United States because of Martin's father was a friend of Reverend. At the Sears, Martin worked in his room or studied in the library. Although Martin would later become a great leader. None of the students' papers he wrote during these years at Boston University had anything to do with civil rights. However, there is one thing now that kept him from his books: a girlfriend. Martin met Henrietta Scott in 1952. It was almost love at first sight. Henrietta, 2 years older than Martin, from Alabama.
Coretta.
College in Ohio. Coretta was in Boston studying voice at the New England Conservatory of Music. She was very pretty. Martin spent much time as he could with her. The 4 things I took for a wife and character: intelligence, personality, and beauty, Martin told Coretta one day. You have all those things. They were both good students. They would finish all their homework before going to a movie or a walk in the park. Martin had chosen his future wife, but she impressed his father or mother. Only after several meetings was Martin's family convinced that he was serious about Coretta. He was insisted that she would be his wife. The family supported his wishes. They were married.
His vision.
What?
His vision.
His vision? The family supported his wishes. They were married in June 18th, 1953. Coretta knew that he had married a man who could become a great and important leader. And she believed that she could be worthy of him. But she also determined to have her say no matter what Martin thought. During the marriage ceremony, Coretta insisted that the promise to obey her husband be left out of the wedding vows. She was determined that their marriage be one of the equally. Coretta and Martin agreed that what was good for one was good for another. The two were married. The next place was bound to have a centenary. Martin assured Coretta it began to get dark. He switched on the headlights. There has to be one hotel room left on the way to Georgia. I hadn't planned on spending your wedding night driving around in the car, Coretta said with a laugh. I know, Martin answered me either. After what seemed like hours of driving, Martin pulled over into the parking lot of a smart building with neatly kept lawn and garden. Coretta peered out the car window. Where are we? She asked. Then she saw a small sign. It was already dark, and Coretta squinted to read the line, but the dim light of the street lamp. But Martin, she gasped, it's a funeral parlor. Why are we stopping here? It isn't just any old place. It was a funeral parlor of a friend. And rather than drive all night, Martin and Coretta cheerfully ended up spending their wedding night there. Well, Coretta whispered as they turned out the lights, we decided what's good for one Besides, not many folks get to spend their wedding night in a funeral parlor. Martin laughed with the ability to adapt to any situation, to laugh at silly things, and ponder serious questions. Coretta was ideally suited for Martin as she was for her. Their marriage was off to a good start. A year later, Martin accepted a call to become administrator at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. Coretta was not happy. She did not want to move back to the South where racial laws still prevented Black Americans as living as they pleased. But just she's slowly starting to change. One of the crucial laws in segregation that had existed years came to an end. Soon after Coretta and Martin returned to Montgomery, the Supreme Court ruled the historic Brown v. Board Education of topical case that racial segregation in public schools were unconstitutional. And Martin arrived.
Okay, wait. What does that mean? Segregation in public schools are unconstitutional.
You have to be separated in public schools.
Well, it's unconstitutional. So it means segregation in public schools, that's what they used to do. But now they're saying it's unconstitutional, which means it's not allowed. It's wrong. It's against the law. So now they have to put the kids together. So that's why when you go to school now, you're not segregated, right?
Yeah.
Right. That's because of Brown versus the Board of Education. That was a ruling, like a law ruling, a court ruling. Okay. So you can thank Brown versus Board of Education, all right? And you can always remember Brown because you're Brown, right?
Yeah.
So his last name was Brown, the guy who sued,
Yeah.
And that's cool. Okay, so what page are we on?
We are on page 43.
All right, 43.
Part
We'll pick up
3.
part 3 tomorrow.